Today we're going to be looking at the historical origin and development of the sitar. The sitar is one of the most popular Indian instruments, yet I suspect most people, particularly Westerners, don't really know much about how or when this instrument came into being. To be honest, even I knew fairly little about this until doing the research for this project. Fortunately, I was assisted in this research by Dr. Samida Betabala, who helped me clarify some of the doubts I was having and who will be appearing later on. Samida is a sitar player as well as assistant professor at Sikkim University. She wrote her PhD thesis on the stylistic evolution of the sitar, as well as a wonderful book on this topic entitled Sitar Music, the Dynamics of Structure and Its Playing Techniques. I would also like to credit Professor Alan Minner's book, Sitar and Sarod in the 18th and 19th centuries, which has been one of the main sources in making this video, and which is, as far as I can tell, the best and most thorough scholarly research on the early history of the sitar. If you're interested in this topic, I would highly encourage you to check both these books out. The age and origin of the sitar have been the subject of much discussion in modern India. Based on its close etymological relation to the Persian word setar, meaning three strings, many argue that the sitar was first brought into India with the Persian invasions starting in the 12th century. Others argue that the sitar evolved from the local tritantrivina, which also happens to mean three-stringed lute in Sanskrit. However, as Minner argues, there appears to be no historical continuity between these early Indian lutes and the modern sitar, making these claims largely unfounded. In fact, there doesn't seem to be sufficient evidence to determine exactly what instrument did the earliest sitars develop from. Both the fretted tampur and the Persian setar are possible, but not entirely certain candidates. What we do know for sure is that the earliest sitars had 3 to 5 strings and were used predominantly for accompanying dance, and that the development towards a solo instrument capable of playing in a classical manner occurred during the 18th and 19th centuries. The oral tradition in India often credits the creation and popularization of the sitar to Amir Khusrau, a Sufi poet who served in the courts of the Delhi Sultanate from 1296 to 1316, and who, by the way, is also credited with the creation of the tabla drum, the khayal vocal genre, and more. However, while Amir Khusrau may undoubtedly have had a strong impact on the music of his time, there is actually no contemporary text mentioning the sitar, either in relation to him or any other musician, making these claims largely unfounded. As Dr. Samida Vedabala explained in our conversation,
his contribution is exaggerated. If you'll ask laymen, students of music, those who are not more intent, they would say sitar, origin of sitar, Amir Khusrau, origin of tabla, Amir Khusrau, inventor of sitar, Amir Khusrau, Qawwali, ghazal, so many things that will be credited that Amir Khusrau has invented. But how can a same person be the inventor of? I don't know what the reason why he has been so exaggerated, but I think if you see scholarly, maybe it's because there is a gap in the history. Then coming to the sitar, why we say that it's in doubt is that if you see any Amir Khusrau, because he was a great poet, we know he was a philosopher, he has written many texts of him. He has mentioned many instruments. He has talked about types of instruments, structures and all, but none of his work ever mentioned the term sitar. First of all. And his contemporary writers also never talked about sitar.
Well, according to the oral tradition, the sitar was invented in the 13th century. Its first actual written appearance, described in a way which begins to resemble its modern shape, appears much later, in a text from 1739. In fact, all material evidence points to 18th century Delhi as the sitar's time and place of origin. So then why do people often credit Amir Khusrau with the sitar's invention? Well, interestingly, there appears to have been another Amir Khusrau, also known as Khusrau Khan, who actually worked in the Mughal court in Delhi during the 18th century. This 18th century Amir Khusrau was the brother of Namad Khan, the father of Firoz Khan, and the grandfather of Masjid Khan, all of whom are known to have been leading figures in the sitar's early historical development. As Minner suggests, it is very likely that the attribution of the sitar's creation to the 13th century Amir Khusrau stems from a confusion between these two different historical figures. Indian classical music underwent a period of profound development during the reign of the three Mughal emperors, Akbar, Jahangir and Shah Jahan, from the mid-16th to the mid-17th centuries. This environment produced the Drupad court music of Tansen and his descendants, which set the standard for North Indian classical music to this day. After this golden period, music was strongly suppressed for a while during the reign of Aurangzeb, though later supported once more by his descendants, reaching a peak during the reign of Muhammad Shah in the mid-18th century. During this time, the sitar gradually evolved from a relatively simple and low-status instrument used predominantly for accompaniment to a leading instrument in its own right, while simultaneously undergoing several structural changes, which in turn enabled much greater musical scope than previously possible. The first significant development in this regard appears to have been the introduction of a metallic plectrum called misrab, which is etymologically derived from the Arabic word zarb, meaning to strike. This development was crucial in allowing for clear and intricate right-hand rhythmic patterns, which in turn became the basis for the Gat-Tora solo genre, about which I will talk a bit more in a second. Gradually, sitars began to incorporate more strings, starting with the chikari strings, which is apparently derived from the Hindi word for mosquito, and followed by the resonating taraf strings, which, according to Minner, were probably first applied to the sarangi bowed instrument. In addition, this trend towards making the sitar an instrument capable of playing in a solo manner also involved incorporating elements from the already established bin or veena instrument, particularly the ability to bend strings laterally in order to create the so-called meend effect. By 1875, the sitar appears to have had all the main characteristics of its present form. This process of structural and technical innovation just described was led by Delhi court musicians Namad Khan, Firoz Khan, and especially Masjid Khan, all of whom played a crucial role in expanding the sitar's technical capability and raising its musical status. In doing so, these musicians established the foundation for all sitar players' technique and repertoire to this day. Eventually, their style became known as the Delhi Baj, while their lineage came to be known as the Senya sitar line, in reference to these musicians' descendants from Tansen.
There might be some different notions about Khusrau Khan, but we know Masjid Khan is very clear, right? We know history about Masjid Khan. So Masjid Khan is his grandson. So there you can say, before Masjid Khan, we can say with this type of things, like we cannot clearly say that it is the origin of his sitar or something like that. But from Masjid Khan, it was very clear. So generally when, because since I talk about stylistic bars, I talk about the style playing technique, those who deal with technique, we start with Masjid Khan.
In addition to being one of the first sitar players of whom we have concrete historical evidence, Masjid Khan is currently best known for the creation and popularization of the so-called Masjid Khani Gat, a type of sitar composition which continues to be played by sitarists to this day. Masjid Khan is also credited for having developed the Gat-Tora musical form, considered to be the first instrumental musical genre independent of vocal forms. Without going into too much detail, essentially what the term gat tora describes is a process where a certain melodic composition, i.e. a gat, is used as a refrain, which is interlaced by looser, more improvisational variations referred to as tora. This early form of solo sitar music was played predominantly in a slow, belambed tempo. It also emphasized complex rhythmic patterns on the right hand, while the left hand remained comparatively underdeveloped at this point. After the Mughal court in Delhi entered its demise in the early 19th century, many musicians moved to the more stable courts in Rajasthan, causing the Senya Sitar lineage to split. Of this later Rajasthani line of Senya Sitar players, Rahim Sen and his son Amrit Sen became the most influential, as they were the first to refine the presentation of each raga and incorporate an extended alap introductory section to their performance. Another important musical center to emerge around this time was Lucknow, which became home of another highly influential early sitar player, Ghulam Raza, who is currently best known for the creation of the medium-speed Raza Khani type gat. Unlike the sitars from the Senya lineage, Ghulam Raza's style was not heavily influenced by Drupal. Instead, his style, which became known as the Purab Baj, was characterized by faster, more intricate playing, which was inspired by lighter musical genres such as Tumri. Because of this, Ghulam Raza was often criticized by his contemporaries for his disregard for tradition and the proper treatment of raga. Gradually, during the latter part of the 19th century, these two main styles of sitar playing, the Delhi Baj and the Purab Baj, became increasingly combined until eventually becoming a core part of all sitar players' repertoire by the early 20th century. This process happened largely in Calcutta, which, as a result of the collapsing feudal system and the rise of a new intellectual middle class, became the new center for music and culture at the time. In addition, this era also saw the rise of middle-class amateur musicians, with the sitar becoming the most popular instrument of choice. One of the most important and influential sitar players from late 19th century Calcutta was Imdad Khan. Imdad Khan was born in Etawah, near Lucknow, and is credited for the addition of new vocal ornaments inspired by Khayal singing, as well as expanding the use of mean and creating new jala patterns. His style was so unique, it eventually became known as the Imdad Khani Baj, or the Etawah Sitar Gharana. He is currently best known as the father of Enayat Khan, who was considered the best sitar player of his time, and even more so as the grandfather of Vilayat Khan, who was arguably the greatest sitar innovator of the 20th century. In addition, Imdad Khan's place in history is firmly secured for having been the first sitar player ever recorded. The period following Indian independence in 1947 is often considered to be the golden age of sitar music, led by the two sitar giants of the 20th century, Ravi Shankar and Vilayat Khan. One could easily dedicate an entire video, or series of videos for that matter, simply on comparing the stylistic differences between these two musicians, as well as the personal histories which led to their stylistic divergence. However, for the purpose of this video, we're only going to be looking at the main structural and technical innovations which each of them introduced. While Ravi Shankar did not introduce such significant changes to the sitar structure, he is credited for developing the sitar's capabilities in the lower sounding octave in order to recreate certain vina effects. To do so, he promoted the use of thicker Karaj strings, which enable larger bends and greater resonance. In addition, he also introduced two small hooks which appear in one of the sitar's top frets and which are used to stop these lower sounding strings from resonating during the faster gut and jala sections where they are no longer needed. Lastly, Ravi Shankar is also credited for incorporating one additional fret at the very top of the neck in order to be able to reach the high sa note as a bend from ma. Of the two, Vilayat Khan is widely considered to have brought about the greatest structural changes to the sitar. During the 1950s and 60s, he worked in close collaboration with the greatest sitar makers of his time, Kanai Lal and Hiren Roy, in order to redesign the sitar in a way which fit his personal tastes and aims. The most noticeable change became the replacement of the two lower-sounding copper Karaj strings in exchange for one single steel string, normally tuned either to the third note of the scale Ga or the fourth note Ma, depending on the raga. This string setting became known as the Gandhar Pancham sitar. His sitar also became smaller and less ornate than Ravi Shankar's. In addition, he also removed the tumba gourd and introduced a thicker tabli, contributing to a cleaner, less resonant sound, which in turn complemented his Gayaki vocal style of playing. At present, the vast majority of sitar players follow either the Ravi Shankar or the Vilayat Khan style. Out of these two main styles of sitar playing, the Vilayat Khan Gandhar Pancham sitar is currently the most popular in India. So there you have it. That's our take on the history of the sitar. Thank you very much for watching and for making it this far. And if you'd like to support us, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel to get all our videos. Goodbye and see you next time.